So imagine you're exactly 40 years old, right? You just walked into your boss's office, handed in your resignation, and told them you are quitting your job forever.
The absolute dream.
Oh, totally. Fast forward a few days, and you are sitting on this pristine beach, looking out at the ocean, knowing you never, ever have to set an alarm clock or join another stressful conference call for the rest of your life. Sounds like the ultimate dream, right?
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't want that?
Exactly. But what if we told you that the people who actually pull this off are often, well, some of the most miserable, anxious people on the planet?
It is a massive paradox. I mean, millions of people are desperately sprinting toward this finish line right now, chasing complete freedom and total autonomy over their time. But when they get there, they freeze.
Which is exactly why we are unpacking this today. Welcome to today's deep dive. We are taking a really close look at a conversation featuring financial personality George Kamel. This is from the Iced Coffee Hour clips. And the mission here is to unpack the brutal reality of the FIRE movement. That stands for financial independence. Retire early, in case you haven't heard of it. We're going to break down why this movement is creating millionaires who are just utterly terrified to spend a dime.
Yeah, and we'll unpack Kamel's specific math, too, on what it actually takes to buy your freedom.
Right, so we want to give you, the listener, a shortcut to being really well informed on all of this. We want to extract the insights you need for your own financial journey, whether your goal is to literally quit at 40 or just, sleep a little better at night.
To really understand this, we have to start with the psychology. The math of early retirement is fascinating, and we will definitely get into the exact mechanics of it. But what is far more compelling is the why. Like, why do people pursue this extreme lifestyle, and why does the reality of it hit them like a ton of bricks once that initial high wears off?
Okay, let's unpack this. Because before we can talk about the exact dollar amount needed to retire, we have to look at the type of person who actually achieves this goal. Their personality is essentially the biggest hurdle to actually enjoying it.
Oh, for sure.
Think about the sheer, unadulterated grind required to retire by 40. Kamel lays out this scenario. If you are 25, making a couple $100,000 a year, you would have to stash away 50 to 60% of your income for 15 straight years to make this happen.
Let's actually look at the mechanics of a 50 to 60% savings rate because, well, it's easy to throw that percentage around, but it is brutal in practice.
Yeah, it's not just skipping a coffee.
No, not at all. If you make $200,000, taxes take a huge chunk right off the top. So to save 50% of your gross income, you are living on a fraction of what your peers are spending. You aren't just skipping lattes, You are driving a 15-year-old car, living with roommates or in a tiny apartment, and saying no to almost every social invitation that costs money. It requires a relentless laser-like focus on a future reality at the total expense of your present reality.
And there's a whole spectrum of how people do this, right? You have lean FIRE, where people build a nest egg of maybe $750,000. But to make that work, they have to live incredibly frugally.
Right, like rice and beans.
Yeah, clipping coupons, basically never traveling. And then on the other extreme, you have fat FIRE, where people feel they need $10 million or more so they can retire, but still fly first class and eat at steakhouses.
Which brings us to a massive psychological friction point Kamel identifies. The personality type required to aggressively accumulate that massive net worth by age 40 is inherently hyper-ambitious. You become totally wired for metrics, for goals, and optimization.
Right.
So when you finally hit that number and sit on a beach, well, the beach gets boring. You are a high-octane engine that suddenly has nowhere to drive.
That makes a lot of sense.
Eventually, sitting on a beach gets old, and you just want a familiar McDonald's hamburger and to sleep in your own bed. The permanent vacation mindset simply cannot sustain a highly ambitious person for 4 decades.
I hear that, but I want to push back on the core motive here for a second. It's like a marathon runner crossing the finish line after months of grueling training and saying, I am never running again. Is the real desire to retire early actually about doing absolutely nothing forever? Or is it more about securing what Kamel bluntly calls screw you money?
That's a good distinction.
Right, like if you have a toxic boss or your industry just burning you out, having enough assets to cover your living expenses gives you the ultimate leverage. You can just walk away. Isn't that the real appeal?
Making work purely optional is a phenomenal goal. The danger, Kamel points out, isn't having the screw you money. The danger is having those assets without having a plan for the intense ambition that generated them in the first place.
Oh, okay.
You've spent a decade and a half treating wealth accumulation as your primary purpose. If you shut that off without a new purpose lined up, the psychological void becomes incredibly dark.
Which leads directly into the strangest part of this whole movement. So let's say these ambitious people secure their money. They hit the exact number on their spreadsheet. You would logically expect the result to be pure freedom, right?
You would think so.
But Kamel observed the Fat Fire community on Reddit, and the prevailing emotion isn't joy, it's this paralyzing fear.
The Fat Fire subreddit is honestly one of the most fascinating case studies in human psychology available on the internet right now. You have people posting there who have perfectly sound math. Like maybe they have $6 million in liquid assets, which means cash or investments they can easily access.
Right.
And their annual expenses are only $100,000 a year. Mathematically, they are golden. They could live for 60 years without making another dime. But they cannot bring themselves to actually pull the trigger and quit.
Wait, I'm stuck on an example Camel gave that honestly blew my mind. He mentions people posting that they have $14 million in liquid assets, and they are legitimately asking the forum if they are ready, saying they feel a little gun-shy and don't think it's enough.
Yeah, everyday people look at that and think, these guys are out of touch idiots.
Seriously.
Yeah.
How can someone with $14 million legitimately feel unsafe?
Yeah.
I mean, are they just bad at math? Or is something fundamentally broken in their threat detection system?
It has absolutely nothing to do with math. It is entirely about threat detection. Think of it like building a fortress wall to keep out invaders.
Okay.
When they start their careers, they build a 10-foot wall and they feel safe. But then they start worrying about taller ladders, so they build it 20 feet high. Then they worry about catapults, so they make it 50 feet thick.
It just never ends.
Exactly. Eventually, they have built a wall so massive that it completely blocks out the sun, and they are sitting alone in the dark, still terrified of what might be out there. They optimize their entire lives to eliminate financial uncertainty, but uncertainty is just a fundamental part of being alive.
So for the listener to ponder, if $14 million doesn't make you feel safe, is this even about the money anymore? It sounds like the financial goal literally morphed into a survival mechanism.
What's fascinating here is that you're exactly right. The goalpost constantly moves because the pursuit of the number was the only thing keeping them going. It gave them structure. They spend all their time constantly planning for catastrophic downsides.
Like what?
Oh, like a massive market crash, hyperinflation, a rare medical emergency, all happening at the exact same time. They have turned their immense wealth into a self-created psychological prison. If you can't learn to live off $10 or $14 million, the problem isn't your budget. The problem is your mindset.
That is heavy. You spend your prime earning years sacrificing entirely focused on this mountain of cash, and when you summit the mountain, you realize the cash doesn't actually provide the security or the identity you thought it would.
And that realization inevitably triggers a profound existential crisis. To avoid ending up in that fat fire prison, we have to look at what Camel suggests as the foundation for a meaningful life. Because a number on a screen just cannot hold up the weight of a human life.
And some of these extreme savers actively destroy their life foundation in pursuit of the number. Camille talks about this disturbing phenomenon where people in these communities actively avoid getting married or having kids. They literally look at a family as a negative line item on a spreadsheet.
Yeah, as a deterrent.
Right. A child is just viewed as a $250,000 deterrent that slows down their retirement timeline.
Which is a tragic way to view human connection. You are applying corporate accounting principles to human existence. Camel's personal antidote to this, what he sees as the cure for this empty, 7-decade capitalistic rat race, is leaning heavily into deeper purpose.
Like what specifically?
Things like faith, family, health, relationships, and meaningful work. He specifically advises these terrified millionaires to, in his words, let go and let God, and go find work they actually enjoy doing without worrying about the dollar amount.
Now, just as a quick note for the listener, our role here is to objectively explore Camel's ideas from the source material. We aren't endorsing a specific religious or political worldview, but his perspective on escaping that rat race is really crucial to understand.
Absolutely. The underlying mechanical argument is what's so fascinating. He is arguing that finding an identity outside of your net worth is the only mathematical way to actually enjoy the money. He also mentions the physical toll of neglecting these areas. You see a lot of high earners who hit their number, but they are completely burnt out, chronically stressed, out of shape, dealing with high blood pressure.
Here's where it gets really interesting, the deep irony in all of this. The very things people are avoiding to save money, like starting a family, are the exact things Kimmel argues force you to be selfless. They give you the purpose you need to actually enjoy the money.
Exactly. A well-rounded life is the ultimate hedge against an existential crisis. If your entire existence is optimized for a high savings rate, your health and your relationships are usually the first things thrown overboard. Wealth without health, relationships, or a broader perspective is fundamentally hollow. It's just an isolated waiting room.
Okay, so if the goal isn't just a blind number to cure our anxiety and we understand we need a life outside of our portfolios, let's finally look at the cold, hard math. What are the actual numbers required to safely step away?
The math essentially comes down to finding a safe withdrawal rate. Camel provides some really practical blanket targets for someone looking to retire around age 50. He breaks it down by lifestyle.
Yeah.
So you're looking at 1 million for a lower cost of living,
Okay.
2 million for a middle, and 3 million for a higher cost of living.
Let's break down the mechanics of that $3 million figure. How does $3 million in a brokerage account actually translate to, buying your groceries and paying your property taxes without the account running dry?
This is where compound interest and investment returns do all the heavy lifting. The general rule of thumb is that if your money is invested in a decent mix of index funds, it will grow over time. If you only withdraw a certain amount, usually around 4% of that total nest egg each year, the underlying growth of the investments should replenish what you take out. So 4% of $3 million is $120,000 a year.
So you essentially have a salary of $120,000 printing itself every year, provided you aren't milking the nest egg.
Precisely. That translates to $10,000 a month gross. If your average household expenses are between $3,000 and $7,000 a month, that $3 million nest egg is plenty. You are financially independent.
But the flip side is brutal. If you have allowed lifestyle inflation to creep in, like maybe you bought the massive house, the luxury cars and lease, and you are spending $20,000 a month, that $3 million will evaporate rapidly.
Oh, instantly. The math completely shatters. And this is where Kamal brings in an interesting contrast. He compares his $1 to $3 million baseline to the advice of financial guru Suze Orman.
Right. She notoriously asserts that you need at least $5 million to be safe.
Yes. Camel views telling an average 40-year-old they need $5 million just to retire as insane. It's so high that it causes people to just give up. But he does acknowledge that hitting $5 million by age 50 is mechanically possible if you start young and follow a very specific roadmap.
Let's look at that roadmap because it highlights the actual mechanics here. It isn't about getting lucky on a single crypto trade.
No, it's a very disciplined, almost boring path. The sequence Camel outlines for an 18 to 20-something is this. Secure a solid household income, say $80,000 to $150,000, maintain a high investment rate, carry absolutely zero consumer debt, no credit card balances, no par loans.
And then comes the biggest lever in his whole strategy. You pay off your mortgage. Once the house is paid off, you take that exact same monthly payment and you aggressively invest it for the rest of your life.
That is where the math goes exponential. In the beginning, investing that mortgage payment feels slow. But over a couple of decades, the interest starts earning its own interest. That is how a regular professional reaches a $3 or $5 million net worth by age 50.
So if you do hit that $5 million mark or even overshoot it, what do you do with the excess? We've established that hoarding it causes a psychological crisis.
Kamel's perspective on this is really balanced. He argues that having excess wealth, anything over that $5 million mark, shifts your capacity. It allows you to build true generational wealth, to give to nonprofits or churches, or to radically support your community.
Making money shouldn't become an unhealthy idol that you worship, but you shouldn't villainize it either.
Exactly. When detached from your personal ego, capital is an incredibly powerful tool for solving problems.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? The math checks out, right?
Yeah.
If you avoid debt and invest your mortgage payment, $5 million is mathematically possible. But does aiming for that $5 million target risk putting you right back into that mental prison we just talked about?
That is the ultimate tightrope walk. The numbers are just tools. The difference between Kimmel's $1 to $3 million baseline and Orman's $5 million is just a matter of lifestyle design. The math is easy.
Really? Easy.
Well, the spreadsheet is easy. Managing your own psychology and lifestyle inflation is the real work. It's ensuring your identity isn't exclusively tied to a fluctuating number in a brokerage account.
It really requires you to constantly check your own motives. To wrap up this deep dive, achieving early retirement isn't just about aggressively saving 60% of your income to hit a 3 or $5 million target. It's about ensuring that the pursuit of that number doesn't strip away your health, your relationships, or your sense of purpose.
Which brings us right back to the beach we started on. I want to leave the listener with a final thought to mull over.
Go for it.
If your bank account suddenly hit your target retirement number tomorrow and the initial vacation finally wore off, well, what is the very first problem in the world you would choose to solve with your time? Because if you don't know the answer to that now, the money won't magically give it to you later.
Wow, that is an incredible question to chew on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep learning, keep questioning, and we will catch you next time.